My name is Susie Seymour, and it's my pleasure to welcome you on behalf of the district. The workshop that you have now entered is on anxiety, depression, and the impact of COVID-19. And I'm very excited to introduce our presenter for this session. His name is Scott Ryan. He's a licensed marriage and family therapist with CHOC. And so we know the quality of the work they do, and we're super excited whenever we can partner with them.
Beautiful. Thank you, Susie. Thanks for the introduction. Right. So we'll have questions at the end. And what the presentation is about today is anxiety, depression, and COVID-19, the relationship of those and how it impacts our kids and what can we do as parents. The title of the presentation is, hey, we've got this, right? Adapting to the new normal. This has been funded by the Orange County Healthcare Agency, Behavioral Health Services, Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security, otherwise known as the CARES Act. So we want to thank those partners for the funding that made this presentation possible. And of course, the invitation and ability to be and partner with Garden Grove Unified School District. Today's agenda, we're kind of going to explore what is our new normal? What does that mean? And we can also kind of explore how is the new normal now different from the normal 3, 6, or 9 months ago? Because that normal is different from this normal. How is it different, right? And what are we supposed to do about it? What can we do about this? There's so many varying ways that COVID has impacted us and our children and our families. What can we do to kind of reduce the impact of these kind of limitations? And as Susie said before, we are going to address questions at the end of the presentation. You can type them in the chat box at any time. We won't be able to respond to them to the end of the presentation. And I definitely appreciate questions as well as comments. So please feel free to do that as we go. So our new normal, let's talk about that. Probably one of the biggest aspects of our new normal is the idea that all of us, adults and kids as well, have to multitask. As parents, we are both the rule enforcers, the chef, the cook, the housekeeper, maybe the therapist, the alarm clock, the person who remembers the schedule of the Zoom call, and where each kid is supposed to do what. There is a lot of multitasking going on. It is very tough. Also, the spaces that we have are now shared spaces. Before, we might have some pretty good degree of separation, right? Perhaps as a parent, you may be working at home. Previously, you might have gone off to work or your child went away to school, right? And as your child went away to school, perhaps that gave you the luxury of being able to clean the house or prepare for them returning after school, right? Or to make snacks or to catch up on things. And you haven't been afforded that luxury in quite a while because it's a shared space. The kid's school is your house or has been, right? Perhaps the internet connection wasn't fast enough. How do we balance that? Do we need more devices? Do we need more cameras? And kids, please turn on your cameras. I know teachers have had so many issues with this, as have parents. And we talk about our new normal. And as I understand it, Garden Grove Unified may be ahead of the curve to some degree, as it sounds like there's plans to be fully in school, perhaps by the end of this month. I think that's fantastic. And I think that'll tie into kind of some of the solutions at the end, why that might be a very, very good thing for a number of reasons. As it is, over the last 3, 6, and 9 months, your kids have had Zoom call after Zoom call, as so have you as an adult. That has taxed us. More and more studies are kind of looking at the impact of kind of prolonged similar activities. The idea that we're doing the same thing over and over, and how does that impact our ability to think, problem solve, and how does that impact our mood? And the simple answer is it causes us to be less efficient thinkers. We're more likely to have brain fog, to have difficulty recalling information. Things kind of blend in together because one thing kind of blends into the next thing, just like our spaces at our home. And that makes it harder to think. And of course, we weren't really set up to do one thing. We're not robotic. We need variety of activities throughout our day to really have some meaning and purpose, to make ourselves feel good about ourselves. And that part has been taken away as well. So there's a lot of profound changes, and the new normal now maybe is different from 3 months ago in several ways. It's as if we never get breaks. We're always on the go. One thing leads to the next thing, and it's kind of continuous and never ending. Boy, when I put it that way, I don't feel a lot of hope. So if you or your child has also kind of felt that at times, it makes sense. Added to that is a great deal of uncertainty. Of course, at this point in time, I think we're feeling more certain, more secure about what is COVID, who does it affect, what we can do to reduce its spread, what might happen if we were to get COVID. And then there's the added hope that there's a vaccine. It's around the corner, it's here. Maybe it's not available for most of us yet, and some of us are getting it. That makes us feel like there's hope, right? And for many of the past 12 months, there's been a great deal of uncertainty. In the beginning, we didn't know about COVID. What is that? Oh, it's only going to last 2 weeks, and then we'll be going back to normal. Huh. Well, we didn't go back to normal after 2 weeks, right? And then we learned more, and then there was more information. And then we keep getting more information, and often the information was changing. It created this idea that we don't know things. We don't know what to expect. It creates doubt about the future or our ability to navigate the pandemic. And that uncertainty kind of leads to a lack of security, maybe some anxiety in your children, in us. There's so many things families had to go through: financial constraints, job loss, perhaps, job reduction. How do we make ends meet? And these are things, right, that we might discuss as parents, and that uncertainty takes up some of our emotional space. That makes it harder for us to respond to our kids. And yet, as much as we might protect our kids from knowing these things, those are adult things. Our kids do know that we ourselves might feel fearful and anxious. And that makes them even a little bit more worried. Mom and dad are worried too, right? What are we going to do? Added to that, during the summer, we had multiple incidents of racial tension, racism that were addressed or not addressed. We had the presidential election. People had concerns about the outcome or doubted the outcome. All of these things created a great time of uncertainty and basically increased the chance that we might feel fear or anxiety. So it's COVID, and the quarantining has really had a profound impact on all of us. So let's talk about anxiety in general. Anxiety is a fear response that tells us there's danger, right? And that's useful. If there's a lion, tiger, or bear, yeah, right? Danger, run, avoid this, get away. Very useful, correct? And yet, we found out that our bodies, our minds are not very good at prolonged fear. anxiety that lasts a long time. Well, that's exactly what COVID has been. It's been 1 year of fear to some degree or another. Our bodies respond poorly to that. We get inflammation, we may experience a sense of hopelessness, and we don't know what to do. That uncertainty causes us to feel even worse. Maybe we feel like we can't cope with it, we don't know what to do, and we want to avoid it. And then later, we may be anxious about more things. I know currently in mental health, there's a big uptick of teenagers and children presenting with anxiety disorders or depressive disorders. And we know it has a large part due to quarantining, fear about COVID, the lack of ability to interact with their peers, to have normative activities, fun, meaningful events, right? So this has a big impact. And by the way, as I paint this picture, as I describe all of these things, I will be presenting some possible solutions, some things that will help reduce anxiety and depression. And I just want you to understand how this happens and why your child may also be feeling anxiety. So anxiety represents a real threat to safety, and COVID is a threat to our safety. It potentially could kill you, right? Or somebody you know or love. That's scary. No one really knows for sure. We still don't. We know a lot more now, 1 year on into the pandemic, and we still don't know everything, right? If you're vaccinated, can you still asymptomatically spread COVID? We're not sure yet. We're studying it, we're doing our best, but we don't know. The information keeps changing, right? Even in California. Which tier are we at? Are we in red? Can we get to orange? Will Disneyland open on April 1st? Gives me hope, not sure. Our entire lives have completely been transformed. Everything has changed. A lot of uncertainty. Kids lost all sense of structure and predictability. School was taken away from them, which, kind of like work, gives me a sense of comfort. I know where I'm supposed to be. I know what I'm supposed to do. I know I get to come home afterwards, right? And you take that away, now what? Well, I don't know. Everything kind of blends together. My sense of purpose is kind of diminished in some way. So this impacts our kids. And you really can't avoid COVID-19. It's kind of like the air we breathe. You can't see it. How do you know if you got it, right? We don't know. If you're asymptomatic, kind of scary. Now, similarly, depression also can be a result of these kind of quarantine measures. You think about it, depression and sadness typically is a loss of pleasure in life, right? It's a loss, period. So sadness represents some kind of loss. Well, what did COVID-19 and quarantine measures do? But actually lose a lot of our ability to be out in a community, to be part of a group, to participate in life, to have fun times, freely and without thought or worry, right? Those things were taken away. So it makes perfect sense that someone might feel extreme sadness, right? Like your kids. Seniors in high school, my graduation year was kind of flat because we couldn't do stuff. Or maybe it was my 6th grade year. Or maybe it's just we have a very young one at home and they haven't been able to go out. And we're worried that maybe this is going to impact them. And of course, I think there's hope. Children are very resilient. And it's something we want to be mindful of. There has been a lot of losses, right? Our kids don't get to spend much time with each other. There's a lot less activity. They have fewer chances to kind of accomplish things, to score a goal on the soccer team, or to have fun, or to learn a new trick on a skateboard, or maybe be part of a group, right? It's as if fun's canceled. All of us are in varying degrees of isolation. you can't leave this house was the measure for many months. And I understand those are changing. So our new normal is not even the same as when we first wrote this presentation a few months ago. It's constantly changing. And it gets tense inside that house when we're all together, doesn't it? And then of course there's nowhere to go, right? And of course I understand that is changing, which is also one of the reasons I am kind of excited on behalf of you all, that your child may or is going back to school. That's pretty much fantastic. We're going to talk now about things that you can do to make things better, how to adapt. One way is to increase structure, okay? So structure provides kind of a sense of purpose and certainty. I know where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to do. This is a very simple idea, but I thought about it today. I don't know if I trained my dogs so much as I just implemented a rule. It's structure. We go walk at the same time, and I always put on their leash after I open the main door, but have the screen door shut so they know to stop. We do that. I put on their leash, then we go for the walk. It provides both of us a sense of comfort. I know what to expect. They know what to expect. And of course, I am talking about my dogs, and I'm talking about us in general. All of us feel somewhat more secure knowing what to expect next. Structure does that for us. It gives us a sense of certainty. Schedules work super well to support that idea, and a visual schedule is often best. Here's an example of a visual schedule, and this one actually was kind of designed maybe during summer. It would look different perhaps during the school year, or perhaps the age of your child. Perhaps it's a lot earlier. We're getting up, having breakfast, then we're going on, either logging on to Zoom, or we're driving to the school, right? And then there's a lunch, there's a recess at school. School is fantastic for creating structure and purpose. I feel like I know exactly where I'm supposed to be Monday through Friday. There's a beginning, maybe there's a period 1 and there's a period 6. And after that, I go home. There's fun times. I get to interact with my friends. I build a sense of mastery or achievement by learning new things or getting to interact with my teacher or friends. That makes me feel good about myself, and that lifts my mood. That is a solution to depression. And that mainly comes from the structure of school, and also the ability to achieve, and then the ability to interact with others. So I was very happy to find out that you guys are going back to school, perhaps all of you by the end of March, or at least it's a process leading to that. That's good news for your kids and you, perhaps. Here's a different looking schedule, maybe for an older child, a teenager. Hey, we just have basic ideas. Maybe this is middle school, right? I know that you know what you need to do with your time. You can budget your time to do homework, and then maybe we'll figure out, when playtime is, if you need that kind of help. And there's a few things I expect you to do before dinner. I'm not going to tell you when to do them. I kind of have the idea that you can budget your time. So in a sense, you're having your kids develop structure on their own, right? Which is great. They're going to need it. If they're in middle school, they'll need it in high school. If they're in high school, they'll need it in college. And why I'm teaching you to do this or telling you to do it is because it supports a sense of mental health, right? It reduces vulnerability to strong emotions, anxious thoughts, or depression. Another way to create this structure could be menus where you just provide options. So it's not we can do anything or what do you want for a snack? It's here are your choices. You can have one of these things. Well, I don't want any of those things. Well, that's fine. You don't have to have a snack. Oh, I'll take the granola bar then. Right. Makes it easier as a parent to manage. And perhaps if you vary the menus from week to week, you can create some variety. It takes the pressure off of you. If this was dinner menus, you already know in advance. You're creating other structure for yourself and your kids. You could do this with chores. Here are the chores to do. So this could be a menu list. Pick one. Brother picks first, sister picks second, or whatever. Or maybe you assign the chores. Maybe they get rotated. So one week, someone's on empty dishwasher or do dishes, and another week, someone else is taking out trash, right? This provides variety, and it also provides structure, and it helps build mastery. You're helping the family. You're focused on things that you can do, not things you can't do, right? I can still do things even during COVID. I can still accomplish things and feel good about myself. That makes me emotionally more healthy and resilient. You could even have menus for fun things. Mom, there's nothing to do. Oh, really? Let's go look at our menu. Here are some of your choices, right? There is some things to do. It's up to you if you want to choose to do them. I get it. We're getting tired of some things, and that doesn't mean there's nothing to do. Here are some ideas. Another way you can promote consistency as a skill is parents or older family members. We can answer questions in a consistent manner, okay? So what that means is we might come up with an answer that we give back every time when our kids ask us certain questions that may be anxiety causing, right? When can I go back to school? When will I get to go to Disneyland? When will I get to have my birthday party that we missed because of COVID, right? And the answer could be, we don't know yet, and I will tell you as soon as I hear. You're being transparent. And if your child asks you again, or another child asks a question that's similar, you say the same answer again. We don't know yet, and we're going to tell you as soon as we hear. School officials, teachers often use this technique. It's not exactly called a broken record, and maybe we repeat the same answer. I am going to give you, the same question. I'm going to give you the same answer, which is an honest one, and it doesn't promote further questioning. It also does indicate I'm going to communicate to you as much as I know. Here's some other ideas. Well, you can't hang out with your friends today. You can visit them on my phone instead. Or, hey, we can't go to the beach, and we could do something else that might be fun. Another way to promote this kind of certainty and skillfulness is to increase activity levels, right? It's so easy to get into a pattern where we're not doing very much. So much has been taken away from us, and yet it's important for us to get some exercise. This could be, hey, let's go have a dance party. Right, let's do that. Why don't we go do jumping jacks during our lunch break? We'll eat our sandwich with a little kid. Maybe let's run around in the backyard before you have to go back to Zoom. And of course, if they're at school, they may be getting a lot more physical activity than they were when they were at home. And that's fantastic news. Exercise helps kids. It releases dopamine, raises our mood, and it also increases our ability to think more clearly and to pay attention. Kids need that activity, so we want to promote that, and it can be done together. Let's both do these things. You can get active with other things, learn a new habit, a new skill, how to play a musical instrument. We can develop other activities that don't involve screen time. It's a good idea not to have a very small, limited amount of things that we might like to do. If they're all involve the internet, what if the internet goes down? It's important that we have a variety of activities. So maybe we're going to limit some of the screen activities and say, what about alone time? What about doing a puzzle? What about doing it together? What would you like to learn how to do? Let's watch YouTube videos together and do it. Here are some resources that refer to mindfulness. It's called Smiling Mind. It's a free mobile app. Mindfulness is a great way to reduce anxiety and depression. by paying attention to exactly what you're doing in the moment. For instance, you may all be listening to me. Maybe you're in front of a phone, maybe in front of a computer. And I'm going to guess that you're seated, you're in a comfortable place. You may or may not be hungry. You have some thoughts, but you're listening to me, and it's not unpleasant, I hope. So in a way, we're acknowledging that, hey, by being mindful to this very moment, I'm more present. I can appreciate kind of the positive things in life, and I'm providing a buffer to the other things when I do have worry thoughts, that I can remind myself by grounding myself in the moment that things are okay, because they are okay in this very moment. That would be the idea. I see right now we are just about till 10 after 7, and I will either rush through some other slides or open it to questions, and I'm may depend on Susie for some guidance in that regard, what she thinks might be the best thing to do, if you're still there.
Sorry, muted. Louisa just reminded folks that the chat room is open for them to post their questions. So I think you might as well take another minute or two.
Okay, fantastic, great. In that case, while you guys are coming up with questions or maybe comments that you'd like to send my way, I have just a couple more slides. And the idea of resilience is this idea of being able to bounce back from adversity, being able to return to an emotional baseline, to feel confident, secure, and content in my life, even though some bad things may happen. One way to inoculate ourselves from bad things might be to develop family traditions together. Could be going to church, could be having family dinners, it could be having dance night or game night together. These kind of things provide happy moments, and they allow for us to have some variety in our life, that when other things happen, aka COVID or other stuff, then we're able to bounce back more quickly. And another way we can do this as parents is to normalize imperfection, making mistakes, right? Model that for your child. Yeah, oh, I really did make a mistake there. I wish I hadn't done that, and I did. And that's part of life, right? Bouncing back. It's okay to make mistakes. Right, you're giving yourself and your child permission to make mistakes. Yeah, who likes getting a C or a bad grade? Or, yeah, that happened to me too. It makes sense, and that's okay. We're just doing the best that we can. Let's keep trying, okay? That promotes resilience, that ability to keep on going even when times get tough. This would just be the idea that we can be creative and also promote resilience by gently creating some uncertainty, such as changing where people sit at the dining table, maybe changing the order of things. For me, I really disliked that chiming noise the car makes if you don't have your seatbelt on, the ding, ding, ding. And I thought, oh my gosh, I used to avoid that so much. I would always put on the seatbelt before I even start the car, just so I wouldn't have to hear it. And after a while, I thought, I can get used to this. So then I changed it. I purposely hear the ding, 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 and it doesn't bother me anymore. And I'm more resilient. I'm able to hear little noises or things that I don't really like, and it's okay. I'm still not going to affect me much, right? So that would be a very simple example. You can change your routine, go for a different route to work, take a different way, shop at a different market, watch a different show, listen to different music, or for your kids, it could be talk to a different person you normally don't talk to. You're building skills and increasing your resilience. And now I'm hoping if there are questions, that maybe we can hear some of them. Are there questions? Oh, you're still muted?
Sorry. We had a couple of comments, no specific questions yet, but I wanted to ask a question that came up at our previous session that I'm sure affects a lot of our parents, and that is, now that the schools are opening up, some students are expressing a lot of fear and anxiety about being around a lot of people, whether it be crowds out on the street, in their personal life, or going back to school? What recommendations or tips do you have in those situations?
Yeah, Susie, that's a fantastic question. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, so normally I like to kind of address this in two parts. I would suggest as a parent, your role is to first understand your child. You want to accept them, you want to validate them, that it makes sense to you. So you're not going to say, what? They're just people, who cares? What I would like you to say would be, that makes sense. Yeah, it's been a long time since we've been around other people. I can understand that you might be a little scared or anxious about it. Right. It's almost like doing a whole new thing over again, even though you were at school, a little over a year ago. It makes sense. It would be normal to be a little scared, right? And then after that, you're kind of putting them at ease, you're aligning with them, and then maybe you're going to now push for a little change. And the idea would be, and it's important for us to learn how to be around other people. I know it's scary, and we live in this world with so many other people. How lucky we are, even though it's scary. And by going to school, you're learning how to be around other people. And then maybe what we're going to do to support them could be to systematically kind of prepare them for that, which could be getting them involved with more people, taking them out more often, maybe making visits to the school, or kind of motivating them to go to school by creating some kind of reward system, right? Making sure that we praise them. We can understand, wow, you were so nervous this morning. How did it go? What? You had fun? Oh my God, I'm so happy for you, right? Or maybe they're going to work towards some other kind of reward that you guys agreed upon, right? But that kind of like consistent feedback, validation, and also supporting that, yes, they do need to, or you want them to go to school, even though they're feeling anxious or afraid, is important. Something along those lines, I think. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. And along with the idea that the schools, many of our schools are back in session, and they're all opening up soon, we do have a lot of school district employees who are in the workshop, and they love the tips as a parent and applying it kind of one-on-one. But do you have any examples for staff to apply similar techniques on with a larger group?
Yeah, that's fantastic. I'm kind of trying to imagine what that might look like, in the school setting, and I've worked in a school setting, so I have some experience in that regard. Thinking about it, I guess I'm imagining kids coming to you in the hallway, and they're trying to escape class, or they're crying, they want to go to the counselor or vice principal because they're not feeling good. And I guess I would validate them at that moment. I can see that you're very upset. It's uncomfortable. And then we're kind of trying to be mindful, right? Maybe increase their grounding to the situation, asking them something. Another good technique is to temporarily distract them. If they're very, very emotional, they're going to be unable to really hear you. You may be a stranger to them, maybe they trust you. Either way, their emotionality is really preventing them from engaging in problem solving or hearing logic in the moment. So it could be as simple as like, hey, you seem like a cool kid. Let's not worry about that right now. Let's play A to Z animals. I'll start. A, aardvark. You go. B, oh, bear? Okay, great. Let me think of one. And by doing that, you are distracting the child and doing something kind of fun. And that brings their anxiety or their emotionality down in that moment. And when it's down enough, you can kind of tell they're more calm, they're listening, they're attending to you. And then that's the time when now maybe you could make some suggestions, like you feel better now, what's your next class, or how can I support you to go there, right? And then of course there's, you have school counselors and you have teachers, and you guys communicate with each other, and then you guys maybe develop other supports based on that. Could be some kind of token reward the teacher provides, because knowing how hard it is for that kid to enter the classroom, or maybe they have more frequent breaks. to reduce anxiety. There's so many different ways you could approach it. But I think just as a person, working on the school campus, and then there's a student in front of you that's overwhelmed, yeah, I think I would kind of meet them where they're at, note their distress, and then distract them in kind of a pleasant game. A to Z Animals is one of my favorites, but it could be anything. If they're a high school kid, maybe you're playing first letter, last name, name celebrities. If I said Marilyn Monroe, the M from the last name would be theirs. Now you got to say an M, and you say Mike Wallace or somebody. Okay, and you keep going. But so you can kind of change what that distracting activity looks like depending on the age of the child too.
I love those examples, Scott. You're showing your age. Marilyn Monroe and Mike Wallace, and mine too, because I know exactly who you're referring to.
That's funny. Yeah. When I said that, I was actually thinking, I just said Mike Wallace from 60 Minutes. I mean, okay.
Before we go to our next question, we do have an associate of Scott's in the chat room. Her name is Cybele, and she's posting some links to some chalk resources for you. So please check that out. The next question would be how to help a high schooler who is at home by himself a lot. And even when we return, there's going to be some hybrids and some students will still be at home part of the time. But how do we get that person motivated to follow the structure and to maybe get them to try your menu ideas?
Yeah. Okay, that's fantastic. Well, you know your child best. So, right. I mean, with your child, I wonder does there need to be some kind of incentive? Right. Here's what we're going to do. This is the new kind of family rules. I'm trying to introduce this, and you want to get their engagement. So perhaps like to increase their motivation, you might be asking them what goes on the menu list, right? What is the thing that you want? Okay, so you want to, go on to PlayStation 5 for 4 hours, or maybe you want to, you're on Discord for 2 hours, and that's your friend group. I get it. And, there's other competing interests. My job as your parent is just to kind of find some balance, so let's you and me work together. So a lot of times kids sometimes will often be more fair than you think. They'll actually come up with some really constructive ideas, what that menu may look like. And then hopefully that's sufficient. That's kind of more like where the kid's motivated enough just based on your relationship. And if it's not, then maybe there has to be some other kind of incentive where, hey, I want you to do more of X, which is 1 hour of homework or reading or self-hygiene or cleaning up your room. And if you can do that 2 or 3 times per week, I'm going to give you Y. Okay. So it could be something along those lines. The other aspect to that would be to make sure they're attainable goals. So for instance, like if I wanted to run a marathon and I run 0 days a week, I'm certainly not ready to run a marathon next week. We want to set smaller chunking kind of goals. And it could be, well, let me go run 2 days a week. I'm going to run on Mondays and Wednesdays. So you want it specific and doable. And you also want your child to succeed. So if you do set up some kind of goal where there's going to be a reward, you really, really have to make sure that they are going to achieve that goal the first few weeks. The reason is we want them to establish, I do this, I get this. And if the goal's too high, they never get the reward. They're going to be, I'm out, with whatever you propose in the future. So it's important you set that goal where they get the reward. And now that you've established that relationship, maybe there's consistency. Maybe you can change the goals where maybe now it's a little bit more homework, or it's more of the self-hygiene, or it's you going back to school, 1 or 2 days per week to get what you want, right? So it's kind of transactional, and you're trying to engage with them, and you're setting realistic goals, right? So they will establish that they get a reward if they do what you ask. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak with you. I very much appreciate the forum, and I appreciate your questions and comments, and thank you.
Advice And I want to thank you on behalf of the district for joining us and wish you a good evening.